people do.
Yeah.
They're like, hi!
There you go. You're a pro. That's a really good smile. Really good. You're so happy.
Welcome back to our channel.
All the time.
Guys.
And girls.
Today I posted a video and I put a quote on it that said, your sons will follow your example, your daughters will marry it. And that got us to thinking. And then later on in the day, we were watching some Instagram reels together and came across Happily Evans After. And we're so excited to see that they had a baby.
That's so cool.
And so then I went back and showed Dan some of their journey with infertility and with adoption. And now she just had this sweet baby. And it just got us all teary-eyed and sobbing. And not just me, Dan was sobbing too. And got us thinking about our journey as parents. So we have 6 kids, as most of you know, and my 2 boys, I struggled with infertility for a lot of years, and I had the blessing of becoming a mom through adoption for my first son. And then with some fertility treatments, I was able to get pregnant 5 years later with my second son. And then Dan had his 2 girls before we got married. And together we've had 2. And so we kind of want to talk about our journey through parenthood, kind of some of the struggles we've had, some of the wins we've had, and what we've learned, and how God has played a part in it, really, a huge part in it.
Yeah, for sure. The message that Andrea put on that video just really hit a home run in my mind on how I saw being a father. Like, I know I made some really big life changes when my daughter started to get older, and to the point where I had already been watching and seeing how Dad was acting most of the time anyways, but like getting old enough that it was going to be sinking in. But anyways, yeah, I realized that those little eyeballs were seeing that version of me and that version of a dad and a husband, and I didn't like that. I didn't want my girls thinking that was cool and normal to find that guy. So I started working on my own, sharpening up my own person, I guess. And that was about the time, just shortly before I had my accident. And just several months before, I stopped drinking and partying and was trying to clean up and be good and just be more of a dad and focus more on that. And then I had my accident.
You were a really good dad before.
Yes.
I think it's just that your priorities were a little off, right? You prioritized work and friends and everything more than, if not equal to, at least being a dad. So when you were a dad, you were a great dad, but you were putting other things as priority too often, right?
Yeah, too often. And then, I think flashing that around in front of their faces too, having friends over or into the big, the big group party, bunch of dumb 20-whatever-year-olds, trying to drink as much not water as possible and it was just foolish and making anyways. But when I was a dad, I was still a dad, but any of the dad stuff I did, I still loved to be very involved with them, and took everything to heart when I would see something that made me feel like I needed to be a better dad. Things always have been there to want to press to be a good dad. I've always wanted that, which is why I was willing so quickly when things snapped in my mind. I was like, man, they're gonna grow up and they're gonna find some dude like me, and I'm gonna have to kick his butt and get him. There's no way I can change things, and so I did. I changed a lot in my life, and then, like I said, I found my way back to Jesus and started working on my faith, and then had my accident, and then I think that was a real test and a trial for my faith building, for sure. But
for those that don't know, he was building a home and fell 30 plus feet and broke his back, and now he's paralyzed.
Yeah.
For those that are new here, that's what his accident was, and that was a little over 10 years ago. We met after his accident as well, so all of this life that he's talking about was before we ever met. So by the time I met him, he was a Jesus loving dude. You've
Yeah,
always loved Jesus.
I always have.
He was more dedicated to Jesus.
Yeah, I just made more exceptions for my behavior.
Yeah.
Or something.
Before.
Yeah, so anyways, I decided to be more responsible and had my accident, and hopefully my girls will see that whole time and trial and everything that I was going through. Oh, darn it. Way to use me. I thought she's really enjoying
my back hurts.
Thing.
POV, you're the wife of someone who has a broken back, so you can't complain that your back hurts.
That's the funny thing. My back is fine. It doesn't hurt. My pain's all in my legs, so joke's on you or whoever. But yeah, can't believe you'd say that and say that you have problems around me.
I know.
Anyways, is your back okay?
Shut up.
You want one of these cushions? They're a lot softer. You're thinking about it. Okay. So from there, I maintained my direction of travel with faith and continued to take my girls. When I got out of the hospital, I continued to grow on my religious journey and brought my girls along with it, and would attend church and would put everything together, wheelchair and all, get them dressed. And I was a single dad at this point. I don't know, kind of run back and forth on the story a little bit, but my divorce from my girl's mom finalized when I was into the hospital a few weeks from my injury that left me paralyzed. So I knew I was coming out a single dad, and yeah, I had a lot of stress and turmoil and worries and wonder about that, like not just like me personally, but how that was going to bleed into my like life, because like I know I didn't want to be alone my whole life. I was worried about how like I was going to go into dating and the whole thing. Like it was all just a whole pile of new stuff that was could have run me right back to the bottle real quick, and just to numb those fears away or whatever, which I'm very glad that I didn't, and that I hung on. And yeah, that takes it to when I met Andrea. We were going to the same place for physical therapy. I was attending for myself physically, and
we're gonna tell that story another time.
Yeah, I'll tell that. But anyways, like Andrea,
stay tuned.
Yeah.
It's a cliffhanger. I would like to, so yeah, that's where Dan was when we met. He had 2 daughters, and they were 7 and 2. By the time we got married, they were 8 and 3. And
I was just, yeah, go ahead.
My sons were the same ages. So when we got married, the girls and the boys are each 3 months apart. So when we got married, we had a 2, 7, 3, and 8. But shortly after we had 2, 3, and 2 8-year-olds. That was really confusing, but
yeah,
they're the same ages for 9 months of the year. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna address on the one little point when we first met, and then I felt like refreshed and like seen by God, and like in your actions with how you had given me that picture of Jesus with a man, like that he was comforting, and man, like that to me just like called out that I was known personally on a more personal level, I felt, and by a loving God. And yeah, so Andrea stood out as a beam of goodness from the beginning, and yeah, luckily we became friends. And then yeah, another time. Fast forward though to our married life, joining a lot, but joining families. What's the word I was just looking for? Blending. Yeah. When you blend a family,
Blending families.
man, that can be
For those who have blended families, which probably are a lot of you, you know it's a struggle. For sure.
Yeah.
But so I had always struggled with infertility my whole adult life. I got married to my first husband when I was 20. We wanted from the get-go to have babies together and never could get pregnant. And no, you got me off track. Dan's giving me looks. There's so much backstory and baggage in our relationship.
Yeah,
Prior to this, we don't need to address it.
You have like a big outing.
I wanted to have babies from the time I was 20 and never got pregnant. So I tried in vitro when I was only, I think, 23 years old, and then we adopted our son when I was 25, and then at 30 I had my now 11-year-old. And yeah, so I had always struggled with infertility, but I always just wanted more kids. Like, I loved being a mom. I wanted so desperately to be a mom. And when Dan and I got married, I wanted more kids. I wanted more kids, and Dan was not on board. We had, again, back to blending families.
Yeah.
Like, it was a struggle. The first few years of our marriage were a struggle. And so I think it takes a while, especially when you're on your second or third marriage. It takes a while to build that trust, right? That you're gonna stay together and that you're not gonna end up having another ex-spouse to deal with with swapping kids and whatever. So I think Dan was in a place of not trusting, and like we just it was
definitely
just hard.
Fearful. Yeah, it was like
just fear, not that he wasn't trusting me that I would do something, but just not trusting that our relationship would be solid enough to last, right?
Yeah.
And so
when we were dating, like when we were first dating, we talked about more like kids and the possibility of more kids, and like it was like a good idea. Like, you know, we both were on board with that. And anyways, it was just the real side of being married and in the like out of the little love bug thing and into the real deal.
Once it all settled in, and you had a lot of insecurities because of your paralysis and stuff, right?
Yeah.
You were still trying to figure out how you felt about your new world and your new body and your new everything, and I think that built a lot of like a lack of confidence that made you unsure that I was gonna stay. Meanwhile, I was in it to win it from the get-go. Like, through all the arguments and the struggles and the fights and whatever, like, I was just in it. I was in it. So I had every confidence that I wanted to have kids. And Dan didn't. So I spent a couple of years really convincing myself for the first time in my adult life that I was done having kids. I didn't want any more kids. I was completely satisfied with the 4 that we had. I have MS, and I thought, I don't know if my body can handle it. I don't know if I'll have enough energy to keep up with more kids, especially babies and toddlers. I don't know if if I'm too old, if there's going to be something wrong with the baby or whatever. Like, I had convinced myself. All of our 4 kids were now in school during the days, so we finally had free time during the days when we had been dealing with like 2 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. Like, it was a lot.
And they were a handful.
And so, so I had finally 100% legit convinced myself, no way, I'm done. And then one night we were laying in bed, and Dan had been doing some service in our LDS temple that we have and we go to, and it's a place where you can go and you can feel peace and quiet and just kind of get away from the craziness of the world. But he was there doing some volunteering, and while he was there, he kept getting these promptings from the Spirit like just urging him that we needed to have a baby. And so God convinced him that we needed to have a baby. And so we're laying in bed one night, and out of nowhere, like we're cuddling and we're all snuggled up together, and Dan thought like, oh, this is gonna be the perfect, beautiful moment. I'm gonna tell Andrea that I'm ready to have kids. Yeah. And she's gonna love me forever and be so excited.
In the background.
So he's like, babe, I really feel like I've been feeling all these promptings in the temple that we need to have a baby. And I was like I didn't say anything, and then I was like, what? Right? I was like, what are you talking about?
Long pause. I was like, what? She fell asleep, or should I do that?
Like, wait, what? Are you serious? Yes, indeed, he was serious.
At which point she told me that she had just come to terms with being our family with what we were, and she's like, I just got done convincing myself, and I'm not sure that I want to have kids. And I was like, well, wait a minute, that didn't go per script. I was flipping through the pages, wasn't in there anywhere. Plot twist. So, anyways, fell asleep.
I don't remember.
Icy night. I don't know.
I don't remember, but I remember obviously we talked about it some more as time went on, and like I trusted that Dan had these promptings, and so like I knew that I needed to pray about it and to get those same confirmations from the Spirit that Dan did. Not to mention, like, we knew that we would have to do in vitro fertilization. We did not have money.
No money.
We were like paycheck to paycheck, barely making our bills, if making our bills. We had like, we didn't have like access to money, like credit wise. We didn't have whatever, and so it was just a huge trial of faith. It's like there's a scripture in the book of Nephi, in the Book of Mormon, and it says, you know, basically if God commands you to do something, he's going to provide a way to do it, and we both believe that. So once I got there, once I felt the Spirit confirming to me that that's what we needed to do, then we both knew that God would prepare a way, even though it seemed like a complete impossibility.
It was crazy. I didn't even really think about that part. It was just like, I don't know how or what or why. I don't know that this is possible even, but as we went and started checking things out and like getting pricing from infertility places, it was just like, oh my gosh, like, what do we do? And so we just...
The thing is, the initial consultation was free. So we're like, well, guess we'll act on that faith, schedule the initial appointment, see what they have to say, just kind of get our feet in the water and show God that we're having faith in what he's telling us to do, and then see what happens, see how he opens doors. And boy, did he open doors. Crazy.
I don't even know how that happened.
There's so many, like Dan had been trying to go to college for a lot of years through the state program. What's it called?
Workforce Services. Voc Rehab.
Oh yeah, Voc Rehab. Through Voc Rehab. And
Voc Rehab. You're speaking like the kids now.
Voc Rehab. Yes. Through Voc Rehab. And all of a sudden, like, all of that came through, and all of a sudden he had the opportunity to start taking some college classes, which, what does that have to do with our fertility journey? Well, when he was in college, it was all paid for by Voc Rehab, but it gave him access to 0-interest student loans right when we needed them. Yeah. So we were able to secure some student loans, right? Like, seriously, it was like days that we needed to pay our down payment in order to start our in vitro cycle. And then also we were able to refinance the Corvette, and like, because he has had that car forever and it was all but paid off. And then just doors kept opening. When I tell you doors were opening, they were opening, and we had a way to pay for it and like never look back. Okay, this is crazy. Fast forward like all these years, like we were just excited that we got student access to student loans, right, with 0 interest. We never have made a payment on those student loans. And then the pandemic happened, and then they came out with this thing saying that they were doing student loan forgiveness for people with disabilities that had student loans. Random. And it was like the month that we were supposed to start making our payment, right? It was a month or 2 ago, and we got the letter in the mail saying that all of our student loan debt had been.
I had to apply for it.
Yeah, Dad had done all these applications, and it was taking way forever, but it just worked out that right before we had a payment due, our first payment due, and this was in vitro costs for our now almost 5-year-old. We were about to have to make our first payment, and we got a letter from the government saying that your loans have been forgiven, like they're all cleared. Like never in a million years could we have seen that coming when that money came available for us to do in vitro, but God knew that was going to happen, and He provided that way for us. So
yeah, it's really crazy how many other things happen to be able to do infertility stuff for both babies, and actually one other try that we, well, I guess 2 other tries that were unsuccessful. One that we had a miscarriage in, and then one that initial deposit didn't happen.
We did the first round of in vitro, got pregnant, and at about 8 weeks, right, the heart stopped beating, and we were just devastated. We cried and cried and cried for those that have had miscarriage, and those that have had a miscarriage after going through the grueling process of in vitro. It's devastating.
And
so
as a guy, like, I was always like, look, you guys that haven't experienced this know what I'm saying. It's like, okay, so you had a miscarriage, you're fine, like, you just get pregnant again, like, do it again later, like, all this stuff that isn't attached to real emotion, like, in a way, but man, when you're in it,
don't get it till you've gone through it.
Yeah, when you're in it, it's a whole different thing,
So, at that point, of course, it was like, okay, God, why? Like, why were we prompted to go through all this? Why were ways prepared financially? Why are we in all this debt? Why is this the ending to our story? But of course, that wasn't the ending.
The odds aren't very reliable for doing in vitro or like infertility treatments. Like, it's not like 50-50 chance, it's like less than 50 most of the time. So like when we first got pregnant right off the bat, we're like, oh yeah, definitely, like, this is solid. God had a hand in it. Yeah. And then it was definitely frustrating when we had that first miscarriage. It's like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah. So we were in the doctor's office. She told us that the heart stopped beating of our baby, and we were just devastated, and we were crying, we were holding each other, sobbing, and both of us just had this overwhelming feeling that we immediately needed to try again. Which, yeah, in that moment of devastation and like all the stuff my body had been through physically and emotionally and everything else, like it was crazy that like as we were embracing in the doctor's office, we both were just like, we had this like fight, and like, we got to do this again. This is what we need to do. Yeah. Which I had done in vitro in my early 20s, and I had vowed to never do it again. Like, actually, my in-laws at the time had paid for like a package deal that was like, you basically pay more up front, but then you get to try until you get a live birth. And I only did one, and I was like, I'm done. And we lost like all the money for the other ones. Like we ended up paying way too much for the first one, but it was so physically and emotionally draining that those of you who have done in vitro know that. And I was done. So the fact that like after all of that and just barely finding out that we had had a miscarriage and that our baby's heart had stopped beating, to have that like peace of the spirit come over us and let us know that we needed to try again was pretty incredible, that we both felt that. And so we did. We had frozen embryos from our first round. We had 3 frozen embryos, right? Or just 2?
No, we just had the 2.
We just had 2 frozen embryos. And so as soon as we could, with my cycle and whatever, we had the 2 frozen embryos put in and found out that
we were pregnant with twins.
Yeah.
So we had 2 little heartbeats beating in there at one point.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my gosh.
Which we were so excited about. And actually both of us have always kind of.
And I thought we were gonna have twins anyways. Like,
yeah.
It's just like, holy crap, this is like a major confirmation thing for me.
What's up? All right. We keep having to pause. I'm so sorry if there's like a glitch in where the story continues, but we have 6 kids, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
So we have to constantly remind ourselves that like this is our job, so that we don't feel guilty for taking time. Like, we haven't taken any time to work today, so right? We're okay.
Yeah.
We're okay, right? We're not neglecting our family.
We can have a few minutes away from the kids.
Yeah. Take an hour and get some work done so that we can put food on the table and whatnot.
Yeah.
All right. So we were pregnant with twins, and at, I don't know, the 8-week appointment, maybe 10 weeks.
It was 10, yeah.
10 weeks. We found out that the one twin's heart wasn't beating, which was devastating, and it was such a mix of emotions because obviously we were so thankful that one of the babies was thriving and healthy and had a perfect heartbeat, but so devastated that, I mean, we lost a baby. Even though we still had one, we still lost another baby, so that was now 2.
Plus the fear of like, okay, one of them, the fear of, okay, one of them like didn't make it, like, are we gonna have a, like, I was afraid that we were gonna have another devastating end to everything, but gosh,
it's scary. Pregnancy's scary for anyone that's, especially if you've had a miscarriage, like you're just constantly in fear that something's gonna go wrong, but didn't. We got our miracle baby.
Dude, she was a frozen little frozen embryo. They like,
it's wild.
Throw a little ice cube out there on a petri dish and warm it up.
A tiny little microscopic one too.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And there's also like a good chance that the embryos don't even survive the thawing process. So the fact that we had 2 survive the thawing process and got pregnant with twins, and anyways, our little fighter, sweet girl, she'll be 5 here in a few months. We had her, and it was beautiful, and she's amazing, and she's such a blessing to our family, and she has given so much purpose to Dan's pain because he's up a lot of nights, especially back then. It's gotten better and better the last little bit, but when she was born, when she was a newborn, Dan was up most of the nights in pain, and so having this sweet little newborn to cuddle like gave purpose to him being up at nights, and he was able to do that. And I would get up and feed the baby, and then he would, anytime that wasn't a feeding or whatever, after we were done nursing and whatnot, he's always been the one to get up with the babies at night and get to have that sweet cuddle time. We've posted lots of videos of that on the nanny cam that we have always had going, and just so many sweet moments that he's been able to have. And like, maybe tell them a little bit about how terrifying it was to think about having a newborn. We can talk about that part of it.
So those of you who don't know still.
Yes, honey. Ask Michaela too.
I was like, turn the doorknob. All right, well, while she's going, so yeah, I'm in a, okay, oh my goodness. So yeah, anyways, I was excited for the idea of having a baby, and then I was scared to death, because like, I knew I could be a father, like I've been a dad, been there and done that. But then I was thinking, oh crap, like I'm in a wheelchair now, so like you use both hands to like maneuver and go around, and I'm like, how's this gonna work being a dad? Like, I'm just gonna sit in the corner or sit there and then have Andrea bring me the baby and just hold the baby for a minute and then like hand it back so I can go do something. Like, it was just really a daunting, boring, like not boring thought, a scary, like a dull, it was like a dull existence almost for a minute, like a fear of like, well crap man, if that's all, like there's gotta be a way to make this all work. And man, surely it was pretty quick. It was pretty quick that I was able to figure out that I could do a ton still with the baby. I have what's called a smart drive on my wheelchair. It's like a little motor powered, anyways. So I'm able to just have one hand free and then control the wheelchair with another hand. And
I'm gonna insert some clips of you with the babies when they were younger. He would get all sorts of creative. He would tie him to his, like sit him on his lap when they were around when Maisie was around 4 months old, and tie like a blanket around to keep her steady on his lap. Or he would put a big fluffy pillow and lay the baby on there to hold her on the lap while they were going down the hallway or whatever. It's like all kinds of creative things you can do. And
then we found a really cool belt device. What's that called again?
Lap baby.
The lap baby.
I'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, the lap baby was a really cool accessory that opened up a lot of freedom for me. It's a belt that goes around my waist, and then it also, you insert the baby, and then you're able to carry the baby where she can sit up, or he or she can sit up and sit in your lap essentially. And then I had both hands free after that. And so yeah, there were a couple of different ideas that we had created and thought of in trying to just be a parent, be a dad with the wheelchair complications. But we figured out ways of like picking her up and putting her down and off the ground, and like being able to, you just get creative. Now I've seen some really cool tools that have been made, not like metal tools, but like a pickup wrap that you can put your baby in and then pick her up, or pick the baby up with one hand and bring it in your lap. Anyways, there's some really cool things to help you be more involved. And it was just really rewarding. I stole every bit of daddy baby time I could. I stole a bunch. I didn't like to share very much. I'm bad, but I loved it. And then, like, I don't know why. We had an idea going on from there with Maisie that we wanted to have another baby. Now we had used up all of our embryos, so we didn't have anything else in the bank there, so to speak. But again, we were going with this prompting and feeling that, hey, like there's still somebody else that's supposed to be here that's not. And
we had this family picture that we took
that's
after
just gonna
we
go
first.
into that.
Maybe I'll post it. Maybe I won't. We had a family picture. What? Alright, just a minute, okay? In just a minute.
The snuggle bug.
So we had this family picture, and Dan had two of the kids on his lap, right? Or next to you.
Yeah, one on a lap and one next to me.
Yeah, and I had one on my lap and one next to me. And there was this big gaping hole in the center. So we're like, when we looked back at that picture after we were thinking that we wanted to have another baby, or that we were supposed to have another baby, we're like, oh, there's this big giant gap in that picture. And then it was so funny. After Maisie was born, we tried to recreate that picture to then fill the gap.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah. Yep.
And so we all sat on this bench. We like positioned everybody. We had shown the photographer the picture we were trying to recreate. And then when the pictures came back, we looked at it and there was still a gap there. And we were like, what in the actual crap?
But
So,
it seemed like purposefully, like
a gap
I
that
don't
needed
know.
to be filled.
Yeah.
That's the only way we can explain it. Like when we both looked at it, we were like, oh my gosh, there's another spot. There's another baby that needs to be there. Like we just knew it. Seems crazy. But so we did that, and first try again, we got pregnant and had this sweet little mama right here. And then we were in a really hard position because we had 2 embryos left that were frozen, and Maisie started out as a frozen embryo, so it was like we can't just dispose of them.
Like there's a little human.
And I know a lot of people will donate them, but that is obviously a very personal decision that needs to be made, and that's not something either of us felt like is what we were supposed to do. And so we were just kind of in a weird spot about it for quite some time, like lots of months.
Yeah.
Just didn't feel like we were supposed to have another one, but like we didn't have any desire to use them necessarily. We were like, we had our hands full and we were just filled with love from these 2 babies, and just didn't feel like there was that we were supposed to have more. But
we had to change everything even to that point, because we had, as far as like vehicles went and stuff, we had the minivan when all of our kids were somewhat little and medium sized, and the minivan worked great. And then like as they were getting bigger, we had the Suburban. So we had the Suburban, but then the problem came. Now we had teenagers that are getting big, and 2 preteens, and then 2 car seats, and the Suburban, and the wheelchair, and the Suburban just isn't set up for all that. So like I grew up with like 9 brothers and sisters, like all piled in. Like we'd have to split up in the Suburban and the minivan to go anywhere, which was really crazy. But now I can see why. But anyways, we had been eyeballing this awesome vehicle that we have now. I love it. My man van, our Nissan NB is so awesome. But yeah, it's like a 13 passenger, or is it 12? I can't remember.
It's 12, and then we have 2 seats out, so we have 10 seats and then space for your wheelchair.
It's so big in there. It's so big. It's so cool. Love that thing. Anyway, so we had to revamp all of our thinking anyway. So then when we were talking about these other 2 embryos that were ready to go, it was a really hard thought, because we had the embryos, the frozen embryo already, the trial through in vitro, and we had our first baby, our now 4-year-old. So the other 2 embryos that were left in the freezer now, we knew were little people, or possibly little people, and we were really conflicted about what to do. So just getting to the point where we were talking about the 2 embryos, and
this is the baby's favorite thing, is for me to put my bathrobe on and wrap it around them. Every day. Mom, can you put your robe on and snuggle me?
But we were stuck with that idea of the 2 embryos, and knowing that the frozen embryos were little babies potentially, so we couldn't just get rid of them. We were conflicted, because we didn't have the feeling that we were supposed to have another baby, but we had these 2 embryos, and like, why would we have had to have done this other cycle if it wasn't to have more babies? Like, we were really just.
But we also didn't feel strongly that we were done either, so.
Yeah. So we went forward with it.
Oh, so finally we were praying about it, and both of us kind of felt like we should use them. And then if it happens, it's meant to happen. If it doesn't, it's not.
Yeah. So that was the clear convincing at that point, that we did everything on our part to answer the calling, if the feelings that we had or were acting upon, and then it gave us closure for knowing that those 2 embryos, those 2 babies potentially, that God had done what He needed to or wanted to do with us and with those babies. And
she's so tired.
yeah, she's
trying
tired.
to keep herself awake.
So
yeah, we gotta go put these babies to bed. So that's our story. She's number 6. That's how we got our 6 babies. Oh, you're 2?
She's at 2 years old.
She's 2, not 6.
She's very smart. This one is very smart.
Look at her. She's like, why in the crap would you say that?
Are you my mom? You don't know me?
You're 2. You're 2, huh? Yep, we're coming. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to our story. If you stayed this whole time. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe.
Like, subscribe, and follow, share.
Thanks so much for all your love and support and being part of our story. Don't forget to
punch today in the face.
I'm standing at the edge of a grave. Here lies the empty life that I chased, where death had lost its hold on me. Your grip of love I could not escape, and I'm walking in a valley of dry bones, where resurrection power starts to grow. The breath of God now in my lungs, I'll prophesy His light has come. And hallelujah, I see the light, I see the light. Hallelujah, hope is alive, hope is alive. And I'm kneeling at the foot of the cross. My richest gains, I count them all lost. No more let sin and sorrow reign. Through Jesus' blood, I'm forever changed. Hallelujah, I see the light, I see the light. Oh, hallelujah, hope is alive, hope is alive.
Heartbeat in the quiet, spotlight in an empty room, a song in the silence, my dreams come into view. A light in the dark, the brightest star. My beginning. I see it now with you. It'll never be the same. The start of my heart, a river washing over me. When you came and changed everything.